Thank you so much for being here this evening, for giving us your time. We have an incredible panel coming in from 6 different fields with their expertise in them, and I think we're gonna try and grab the maximum from them. Before we start off, we'd be giving out our territorial acknowledgement. We at Kwantlen Polytechnic University respectfully acknowledge that we live, work, and study in a region that overlaps with the south of the Fraser River. That includes First Nations, say Musqueam, Quechua, Semiahmoo, Kakite, Coquitlam, and with the lands of Kwantlen First Nations, which gifted their name to this university. Uh, so let's get going into it. Uh, when I was trying to define out an agenda for the discussion, uh, the one thing that buzzed a lot was I want to develop my skill set, but I'm not sure where, how, and why. So I was like, if that those are the questions that are there, and we want answers, why not we gather up a panel that discusses how can you actually do skill development in a era that's so fast changing, and how do you keep up with it, right? So we'd start off with our panel introduction. Uh, they are coming in from very diverse backgrounds. Starting off with Praveen. Praveen, I'd like you to have your name, what you currently do, and a little bit about yourself. What brought you to IT? You just press
Okay.
on.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. Myself, Praveen Singh. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and been working in IT industry for almost a decade now. I'm a cloud solution consultant. I run an IT consulting firm. Along with that, we do write code and develop solutions every day. And what brought me to IT was just my curiosity for cloud. I think that's in a nutshell for me.
Makes sense. Alex?
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Almudares. I'm the Work Integrated Learning Coordinator here at KPU Melville School of Business. I design and run different work integrated learning programs, just like the internship program. And I also oversee a wonderful team of student success coaches who are dedicated to help our business students. I have been all around the industry. I was working before in the education field and then moved on to the automotive and then moved back to the education. What really made me return back to education is what I do is very rewarding. Seeing students succeed and reach their career goals is very rewarding, and that's what motivated me to return to the education. Over to you.
Tim?
Not sure if that one works. So, all right. My name is Tim Jern. I'm the manager of IT Fleet Development and Administration, also a long name like you, for Royal Caribbean Group, the parent company of Royal Caribbean International, Celebrity Cruises, Silver Sea Cruises, Hapag, Lloyd, and TUI. I started off actually working for the company 15 years ago, joining as a technician on board the ships. I spent 13 years cruising around the world, and quite quickly made it up to shipboard IT manager, where I joined some multi-billion-dollar projects, building ships and doing dry docks. And then the last 2 years, I'm now part of IT fleet management, where I'm in charge of all of our hiring and promotions and our shipboard IT staff development, so all their training and working on educating and getting everyone up to standards. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Graduated from BTech back in 2010.
Raheem?
Hi, I'm Raheem. I have been doing IT stuff since I was a kid. I started off working in a computer store in grade 10. Previous to that, I'd started playing with Linux on my computer that took floppy disks. Okay, so was a BTech grad, Got actually a co-op placement here at KPU. Worked in various areas: network administration, enterprise software, software support, some development as well. Got a little bit dirty with some systems administration, Microsoft systems, databases, MySQL, SQL Server. And then went to go teach full-time for a little bit and looked around and went, I feel a little out of touch, and so I returned. And I am currently a senior information security analyst with the information security team. So that's what I do, and I also teach part-time as well. So that's a little bit about me.
Angelica.
Hello. It was on. Hey, I'm Angelica. I graduated from Kwantlen back in 2021. While I was attending KPU, I got a co-op at a lumber company doing software testing. Kind of just fell into it. I was looking to do development, but I enjoyed testing a lot more than I thought I would. From there, I moved on to a VR company that specialized in surgical simulations. So a lot of my job for that was jumping into a VR headset and performing surgery every day in a virtual reality room. That was a lot of fun, and currently I am now working at PwC as a QA engineer. I work a lot with manual testing, lots of automation. We're doing lots of AI initiatives right now, so it's something to look forward to and talk about.
Richard.
Hi everyone, I'm Richard, the campus support supervisor for the IT department at KPU. Maybe some of you have seen me already, whether it was attending to classroom calls, carrying equipment to and from all the hallways and different buildings we have here. I started as a student at KPU, eventually joining the co-op program, and ended up with the CRA and CBSA back in the start of 2016. At the end of that program, or that semester, I was extended on, but there had to be some approvals back with the head office back in Ontario, so my team leader suggested that I start applying elsewhere. Ended up at KPU, got the position, so had to let my team lead know that I was gonna go from CRA to KPU, just in time for the approval to come from back east, but chose to stay at KPU instead. After I finished my second co-op term, I stayed on as a student assistant for a couple semesters just to finish my diploma program. Graduated in May of 2017, and that was when an evening full-time position opened up at the service desk. Joined there, and ever since I've just been, essentially climbing the corporate ladder, starting off as a service desk technician to an SST at the Surrey campus, and ended up getting the supervisor role in early 2021 after just being able to go visit all 5 of our campuses, work with various departments, and my manager gave me the chance for a supervisor role, which I've been in ever since.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, everyone. Moving further, we kind of wanted to look into skill development at large, and one word that comes in related to that is being workforce ready, and it's a bit of a confusion there because there's no rigid definition to it. So I want to go across you guys and see what, according to you, a workforce ready person means, as if they're freshly graduating out of university, or they're studying and they want to be one of that workforce ready person. What do you think is kind of the definition, according to you, being workforce ready? Praveen, you want to start off?
Sure. I think for me, if I'm looking at anybody who is freshly graduating or still in college, is to have a clear roadmap and a mindset that you actually want to go into a specific field. Know the ins and out of that, what that entails in terms of the skill set that it might need you to have. how long it will take for you to get all those skill sets and be able to talk to the interviewer in a way that they understand that you know the stuff that you're talking about. So it's not just about writing on resume that you have these skills. It's also when it comes to the interview that you have to prove that you can talk the language that these guys do every day. So I think it's just more of like being end to end, making sure you have the clear roadmap on what your actual job, potential job that you want to go into, and then prepare yourself according to that.
Right. Alex, you deal a lot with students directly, and what Praveen mentioned is like a clear roadmap of what we are trying to achieve. How often do you see that in students having that roadmap and timeline established already?
Very rarely. Our students, not only our students, students in general, when they graduate, they don't even start to know what they want to specialize in or to be in which industry. Because let's talk, for example, about IT. IT is in every industry, really. Like and it's so massive. They can be specialized in any industry they want, but they don't have an idea. Therefore, my answer to your question is like being career ready is really knowing and developing the necessary career skills. You have two parts to be career ready. You have your knowledge within your program that you graduated from, which is IT, for example. You have to have the necessary knowledge, but at the same time, you have to have the necessary career skills in order for you to find a suitable placement or job, or in order for you to know where you want to be specialized in. Because without those career skills, how can you find a job? Career skills involve many different skills, not only resume and cover letter or interview. Career skills involve personal branding, problem solving, time management, networking, and to be honest with you, a lot of IT, I see this, and a lot of IT students and accounting students. They are so industry driven that they forget the networking part. They forget the human interaction part. Without getting to know more people within your industry, how else can you know about or hear about different opportunities? Without knowing people in the industry, how can you keep up with all the new technology that is being introduced? Like, as I mentioned earlier, the IT industry evolves so quickly that even IT corporations sometimes cannot keep up with the technology being introduced. So with that said, and most of this new technology is not being taught at any of the institutions. So what do you do in order for you to be career ready? You lean on your personal skills, just like time management, problem solving, personal branding, conflict resolution. And my best one is to find a mentor. Finding a mentor within the field, if I know, for example, Richard or Rahim, I would connect with them. Or if they cannot be my mentors, I will ask if they know somebody who's willing to be my mentor. I would ask all the questions. I'll prepare questions to my mentor. And I will meet with my mentor regularly, once a month. Every time I meet with my mentor, I'd like to dive in a specific industry. That's how you learn what you're going to expect if you want to specialize in any industry. And that's how you can be career ready. It's a mix of two things. Technology and personal knowledge equals employability.
Okay. It's a great equation for employability. I know Richard and Tim kind of already mentioned that you've been involved in hiring for new employees. That includes fresh grads or maybe co-op students at large. What do you think differs in a candidate that you'd hire and someone that you'd not? Is that the basic skill set that you look at, or what do you look at as a person in large, so that you hire them to work for you?
All right. Yeah, so when I do probably about 10 to 15 interviews a week, so a lot. I meet a lot of people. And I have to say, if someone has a story to tell me about themselves, why they got into IT in the first place, what drives them to want to learn more, want to give back, more than just listing their courses, saying I took InfoSec 101, 102, 104. It doesn't really mean that much to me, and I assume everyone who's applying is going to have InfoSec 101, 102. So if I am hearing somebody's passion, hearing somebody's drive in the story that they're telling me, then I know this person is someone who is going to make it onto a ship and is going to continue having that drive, regardless of their schooling. Now, of course, I shouldn't be saying this, but maybe at a university. But you can learn a lot at university, a lot of theory. But until you start actually doing it, you're not applying those principles that you're learning here. So another thing that I do kind of look for when I'm interviewing somebody is how have they utilized what they've learned in the real world. Now, of course, if you're a student and you haven't had a co-op term or the opportunity to work, then how can you show that to me? And the real easy answer is, you guys work in IT or you're in IT, I'm sure your families every other week are saying, hey, how do I do this on my computer? Why isn't my TV turning on automatically? Explain those things. I am the IT guy for my family. This is what I do. This is how I do it. I was playing around with some automation at home, and this is what I learned. That to me shows that you have a real drive and real passion for IT and not just in the IT program, checking off boxes and writing exams.
Perfect. Richard, you want to add on something to that?
Got to make sure that's on first. Yeah, so in my role of hiring for co-op students, it is a tough sell, right? All you have is just your hard skills that you've learned in class, nothing really to show as far as that experience goes. So as Tim had said, it's really important that you can note stuff, whether you've dealt with really frustrated family members, technology. Another thing that I can notice right away too is, passion, enthusiasm. You're not just in it for a paycheck, but let's be honest, we all got to eat. When it comes to other things, soft skills are very important too. How you deal with conflict in group projects is really important too. Some of the interviews that I have seen, a lot of the candidates, they'll be, shifting blame to other people. There's not really too much as far as accountability goes. I'll ask them a question about how they dealt with a tough time, and you can just see the steam coming out of their ears, and that's kind of a giveaway that they're not really coachable. They're not really going to be listening to instructions. They want to just do things their own way, have a know-it-all procedure, and with any new job, you're going to suck at it at first. So as long as you have that mindset that, great, this isn't a new skill, I'm not going to be able to pick up on this right away, but I will. You'll deal with the uphill curve of learning new things, maybe even going against your instincts of, what you learned in school, but how do you apply that out in the workforce?
Definitely. Raheem, I think everybody kind of here mentioned that how if you are graduating from school, it's kind of give you the theoretical knowledge about stuff, but unless you apply it's not something that counts as a quantifiable thing. You have been an instructor for quite some time now, and I if I meet you as an instructor, I see you as like a really knowledgeable person who is willing to share, right? But I think one fine day I was checking up Rate My Professor and you came up, right? And I read through the comments, and everybody mentions that your courses are really work intensive. You want people to apply what you are teaching, but not most of them were really happy doing that. Do you think that that counts as a gap with people where they want something out of the job market, but they're not willing to practically apply if somebody's putting in the effort that go in, hey, apply, please. I want this to be done and that to be done. What do you think about that as a gap?
So definitely, I think there's definitely a gap, and a lot of I mean some of it is just style. I'm just very practical and I'm very applied, and the results are binomial. Some people absolutely love it. Some people are like, this is way beyond my wheelhouse. If I go and work for Tim and I can't do anything, that might be a bit of a problem, right? And so it's sorry, I'm just using you as an example. So, and so yeah, I mean, I definitely think that what's the point of book knowledge if you can't do anything with it? One of the probably the most valuable skills to contribute a little bit to is really problem solving and the ability to apply what you know, right? And so, that's always something I'm trying to drive with my students, and to have a good portfolio and to be able to talk about when you go to an interview, like, oh, I did this thing, and like I set up Open VPN between my nodes, and I used a packet sniffer to see if I could get in any of the encrypted data. These kinds of things where you're actually like doing some hands-on stuff. So, is there if you're asking me whether there's a gap between practical application and academia, I think um, that depends on your approach, right? I think that depends on the approach. That may also depend on your instructor's approach as well, which
Definitely.
I'll leave that one hanging because it's
Hanging there.
generally the
I,
safest
I,
thing to
I
do.
think I think Angelica might be something there to add on to it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So as Raheem mentioned, like we specify that gap, but it's totally approach dependent. If we look at skill development specifically for your field, automations and testing, what do you think can be that fulfilling factor that can fulfill that gap for a person to be industry ready or employable or whatever you call it?
Working on small projects on your own outside of class is a really good idea. If you're able to explain how you approached your development, for instance, or how you approached testing, or even just tried to automate something with your small project, being able to explain step by step how you did that is super beneficial. And I find that in my experience, what people are lacking is that practical experience, which I completely get because realistically, you're not working on an industry project while you're going to school unless you're in an IT role. So you really have to lean into your personal projects and think about what kind of role you want, what you want to showcase with that project you're working on, and create portfolios. They're really important. With development, I didn't really think I needed one, but you should have like a GitHub portfolio, just something to show where you can speak about the kind of approach you did. So I think in terms of like that practical gap, just working on stuff on your own is a really good idea.
Definitely. So it's kind of like if we look at the skill development part of it, it's more like you do things on your own, kind of as a gist of everything, kind of everybody added onto it, and then if we have a really good implementation on a personal project that acts as a plus on your job application. I want to drive this kind of towards the non-technical side of things. Alex already mentioned some of the points, but it's more of like how everybody who is hiring looks in for specific skills in people, whether that be hard skills or soft skills. Say if Praveen's hiring for someone in working in cloud, that the person in Praveen's mind would be different if uh, maybe Tim or Raheem would be hiring somebody for security or IT management, right? So, Praveen, I wanted to ask in what, so you work in with a lot of developers who are starting out, whether that be infrastructure, cloud infrastructure developers, or just generic software developers at large, right? So whenever you're trying to pick one person for your team, uh, what do you actually want in them as a team member, as an added value to your team?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a couple things, right? The tech stack doesn't really matter in today's time, right? If if I'm looking for like person with a Python skill, I would look at the resume as a whole in terms of what other programming languages they are familiar with. It could be Node or it could be some other PHP. The reason being, the backend, the logic, and how you process and how you write the code is essentially the same. It's just different tech stacks. So you gotta understand the basic of the programming, of the object orientation. The rest of the piece is really easy to pick up. I myself, I don't come from the Python or the Next.js background, but knowing a little bit about Node.js, knowing a bit about Python, you can easily kind of interpolate and write some code. Apart from that, looking at from the hiring perspective, while you're working in a bigger or a smaller company, the key it comes down to is how well you can communicate and understand the skill requirements or the requirements of the program or the software that you're working on, and how well you can get along with the other team members who are working on the same project. We had issues like from time to time when we have a same project and there are multiple people working on same project and they all end up pushing code into the same repo. And you gotta make sure that everybody understands the basic rules of how to write code, how to make sure they write the clean code. They talk to other peers, they do the PRs, they do the approvals, they follow the process which is in place to ensure that the thing that they're doing has a certain step-by-step process. It's being followed so that the end code, which is production ready or dev ready, at least gets vetted, at least get checked and approved by somebody, which could be their peers, mentors, or a supervisor. That it doesn't just fall through the crack, and they don't have a code which looks very different from somebody else on the team. So I think it's ensuring that everybody follows the protocols, and it's not just protocol; it's more like this best practices on how to write code, especially with the development. For example, and being on same page with the rest of the team, I think it's really important in this case.
What part of the person that you're interviewing kind of reflects that to you?
We usually give a test to people whenever we hire somebody. We give them a really small test. I remember hiring a recent graduate, and I gave them a test to do a small project where they have to put authentication system in an application. And it could be a single-page application, but they have to do some auth setup in a way that it has a login flow. They use single sign-on, and I'm not really looking for the functionality out of it. I'm just looking at how they wrote the code, what kind of file structure they have followed. Did they follow appropriate folder structure and naming convention? Did they place the code in a way or in specific folders that it's supposed to be versus everything is just in a single file? That actually tells me that, okay, this person is actually thinking in terms of scalability, right? If that code were to expand in the future, like, 5 more people were to come in and start writing code, do they have to like clash with each other on the same file versus they all get their own separate folder? APIs are sitting in one folder, front end in a different folder, back end in a different folder. So everybody gets the responsibility, but they own this specific area, so nobody else is going into a territory that they're not working on actively. So I think it's the structure of how they write code that really kind of calls me out and tells me that this person is actually thinking thoroughly before they write code.
Definitely. I think Raheem really related to what he said in terms of bad code. And I think I want to switch kind of to you, Raheem. Uh, as Praveen mentioned, there's good code and there's bad code. I think for me personally, what I have observed is most part of it is bad code. Uh, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but most of it is. So whenever you have that kind of what do we call it, like an opportunity to tell people that, hey, this is how you do things, and especially in times when most percentage of it can be automated with AI, or at least some part of it can be automated. How do you look at that from information security perspective?
I, sorry, yeah, thanks. Good question. Definitely appreciate good structure, configuration management, 100%. Um, I, I was talking to a friend, he's pretty senior at Amazon, and he was telling me I have to treat AI like a dumb intern. And what he basically meant was this thing can write you code that works, but do you understand what it's writing? And a lot of the times, sure, vibe coding, we can tell a computer, give me a program, and but it can't teach the person how to code. I had an instance in a class I taught recently, an Android class, and I could tell a student had gotten a solution from AI, but they had no idea how it worked. And that's a little bit dangerous. The use of AI is good once you're good at your basics. And it's good to get you started on something, but I always caution people don't rely on it too much. Because if it starts doing things that you're not aware of or you're not, it can hallucinate and, there can be some side effects there. I'm not trying to poo poo AI. I'm just saying it's a tool, but it needs to be used carefully if that's at all helpful.
Definitely.
Um, I love all the things Parveen said. I cover them all in my software engineering class very fun.
How do you think that has affected your work as a security analyst?
Okay, so yeah, so security, as a security analyst, it's a good question. I'm dealing more with using AI-enabled products, so we don't get, oftentimes, you deal with a vendor and they're not going to tell you what LLM they're using, and they're not going to tell you really how their model actually works because that's proprietary information to them. But what we need to think about from an IT perspective, and less of a development one, is how are we going to integrate these tools to automate the boring stuff, right? Uh, AI is not going to execute an incident response plan for me. For that, I need my brain, and I need to be able to think very critically, and I need to be able to problem solve, and I need to think about edge cases and all that kind of stuff. But there are some tools that are very, very useful. We were talking about them before the panel, where you need to take a look at it and go, okay, where does this fit, and how can I implement it in a way that frees up my time, and but takes away kind of odd. What's the title of that popular Python book? Automate the boring stuff, right? And so I think there's a lot of value to be had there. Is AI becoming more of a threat? We have seen an uptake in bad actors using AI to write malware, so definitely. But in terms of, I think most folks really from a blue team perspective, you really need to okay, you can really leverage some of the AI functionalities of some of your products and know how to integrate them well, and that's the key, I think.
Definitely. I think you mentioned a lot about automations, and Angelica, most part of the job profile does automations, and then you're gonna go test those, right? Or maybe you're writing automations to test something that's pre-built. So when we kind of mention that AI part of it, how does that part has changed? Do you still need that critical thinking in the design flow of the automation or the application flow of it, or it's more of like I need to know how am I implementing it in order to get what I wanted in the first place? Does that something that AI has changed in creating automations and actually testing them?
So my perspective is a little biased, I guess. I've been working a lot with AI agents in my current workflows, and I can confirm it's really good to get started and to kind of give you a baseline, but it hallucinates a lot. It has a lot of dependencies, and depending on the specific workflow, it's going to give you garbage. There's a lot of human intervention that's needed. For example, as a QA engineer, I write test cases, and a lot of that has to do with me receiving, let's say, requirements from the business, and then having to create test cases based on that. Depending on which business analyst or product owner or whoever wrote your user story, if they wrote it in a really, really good way, your AI agent, they're gonna do a good job with like giving you your test cases. But if you have someone who didn't write it very well, there's a lot of gaps in the logic that they didn't find when they were writing it, your AI agent doesn't pick up on that. It just returns what it's reading from whatever you feed it. So there's a lot of, I think there is this idea that AI is gonna, automate everything, we're gonna rely on it, it's gonna be amazing. The reality is that there's a lot of dependencies and people are using it too much. They're leaning on it too much. I think we're not at that point where we have really, really good sentient AI. We are still teaching our LLMs. We're still kind of building up our AI. So right now, I think we're at a point where don't lean on it too much. Definitely understand how what your workflow looks like, what your application looks like, because sometimes your AI agent, they're not going to know what the user interface of your application looks like. They're not going to know the proper workflows. And from a testing perspective, personally speaking, you don't know what your end users are going to do. We say this constantly, but treat them like they're dumb. Assume that they're going to break the system somehow. Your agents don't assume that. They just do the most perfect workflow, and that's it.
Right. Definitely. And when you say there's that hallucination and bad part of it, do you think that kind of that skill set to fix that bad part is also necessary?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about generative AI, you give it a prompt, it gives you something back, you detect what's wrong with it, and you keep feeding it prompts. So you're basically iterating until you get it right. And that's kind of also how we teach our LLMs and how we're teaching our AI. So I think it's important to just realize that if you're going to use AI, you're going to have to keep iterating. And there are often times where I'm spending more time iterating when I could have just done it myself and finished the task. And I'm still not done with the iterations.
Right. Definitely. Definitely. So I think what we kind of think of this is using AI more of as a tool rather than having that taken the main seat and then let them do all the work, right? So I think it kind of affects how our learning process is as of now. So if I see that I would be learning something 20 years ago when AI wasn't that prominent, I would have been learning that thing differently than what I am doing right now and what maybe people should be doing right now. So if we kind of look at the learning part of the story, and how can we approach learning in a time when there's so much of data flow and so much sources that are available out there, it's kind of tricky to get onto that approach of learning. So I really want to know if, like, say, Praveen, if you're learning out maybe a new Azure service, say you got to learn something about Azure AI Foundry or something, right? So what is kind of your approach to learning something new?
In cloud, and I think it's same for being a developer as well. It's you gotta read documentation. You have to read a lot of it. All these people who have built this stuff, whether that's old, if it's code related, or if it's new, cloud services, people who are building this thing, they are writing heavy documentation on how to use it, what the best practices are. They give you templates. They handhold you like along the way to actually get you to the to the stage where you can actually deploy stuff yourself. My two goes place is simply Microsoft Learn. If I have to learn Microsoft Azure, if it's AWS, I would go to AWS Academy. They have ton of resources. They give you labs as well. Sometimes you can find that all on the Learn website. And I honestly I don't go anywhere else. For me, it's the only single source of truth for me because I know that's where the proper information and the accurate information will live. And I subscribe to the feeds actually. There's a lot of RSS feeds that I subscribe to. So anytime Microsoft comes up with new updates or new changes or new technology, it's always in my inbox saying, hey, we got like 20 updates since yesterday. And if it interests you, you can take a look. But otherwise, if it's really a big thing, it's always on news. You see like new models coming out. It may be of less of a use for you as an individual, right? It's more of like a bigger scheme for a companies. But whatever you need to get started in your career as an IT professional, it's already out there. There's nothing new for you in terms of the technology. There may be some new functionality that comes out for those technologies. But I think in order to understand the basics and to understand the core functionality and technology of the cloud, everything is already in place.
How do you use AI to learn?
My use case for AI is pretty simple. I just go and ask if I need a roadmap, right? I say, hey, I want to learn Microsoft Azure functions. And I would just say, I want to learn Azure function, give me like, 20 use cases. My strategy to learn is also a bit different. I don't really just look at the documentation and read and just try to deploy. I think of it as a solution that I want to build with it. If I'm looking at Azure App Service, I want to see what it does, and I want to try and build something with it, because that actually teaches me more versus just clicking through buttons and just deploying it and be like, oh, yeah, I have done this. I know how to deploy a web app. But it doesn't really help me understand like what does it do, what's the backend behind it, how do you open the console on the web app, how do you put a MongoDB with a web application, and how do it all comes together in terms of like adding multiple services to it. How do you put front door or firewall in terms in front of it? So it's more of like building solutions. I think of it as a solution building exercise versus just learning like one component. So if you go with that mindset, I think you end up learning more, and you also trying to understand the bigger picture architecture of how this thing will fit into the technology piece. And I think it helps in the later on stages where you actually start implementing this in real life, or whether that's in your interviewing or you're actually doing it on your job. You actually kind of not just going in with one single tech stack in your mind, but you also understand a bit more about other services that are relevant to that service that you're talking about.
Definitely. I think that part of it fits down better when you actually have that implementation mindset first, rather than actually trying and cramming out the whole thing and then trying to apply for it. Definitely that's a really good approach. I think from more of a student side of things, Alex and I think Richard would be uh, people who deal with students a lot, specifically in terms of trying to teach them something, mostly work related, mostly giving out instructions. Alex, you deal with a lot of interns, trying to guide them through a learning journey that they might be on during that term. So how do you guys think that you will tell students to approach learning? Uh, that it can be specific to IT, or it can be a generic approach. Like, what do you think you would advise to students?
Which one goes first, Richard or myself?
Up to you guys.
The first things first. Learning goes beyond finishing up at KPU or wherever you're taking your studies. When you start at the workforce, you've got all the hard skills. Soft skills are going to be developed next. I know I kind of gone into that with my previous answer, but really just having an open-minded approach when you are being taught something. Try to listen more than speak. It's always good to have questions, but always try to save those questions for the very end, because as you're being taught, maybe that question gets answered and you'll appear to be a lot more, trying to think of a decent word here. Not necessarily calm, but like you're receptive more to the information rather than just, having, question after question. What does this mean? What does that mean? Why isn't it done this way? Like, there is a difference between process and problem solving. Problem solving, of course, is very important too. You're going to be put in situations where you won't have an answer and someone is like, hey, need this right now. What's going on? Have some humility and just explain, like, in my current role, this is a question I have never gotten before, so thank you for this. I will need to give this to another one of my coworkers, perhaps a supervisor or manager, and I will, learn from this conversation moving forward. It's really important to have that because you can't really entertain everything. And when you're brand new, you're not going to have all the answers. You shouldn't always have a calm and cool head. You're going to learn from this, and it takes years to get into that comfort seat there. Myself, especially 8 years ago when I first started, doing something like this, being a panelist and speaking to you all, would have terrified me. So, with all the experience that I've had, dealing with all of the uncomfortable emotions, I've been able to eventually warm up to it, and now, not sweating at all, everything is fine, and I can actually approach each and every one of you and, handle questions without having to be worried about not having all the answers.
Definitely. Alex, you wanna?
Yeah, I can definitely add to what Richard said here. I think it's also important when I'm dealing with a student to realize that every student is unique, and every student learn at their own pace and in their own ways. Some students are more like they learn better by watching. Some students learn better by doing. Realizing this gives you a better picture on how to approach students and teaching them how to have a growth mindset instead of closed mindset. Let me give you an example. Growth mindset is like a person with a sponge. When you have a sponge and you put it on top of a liquid, what happens? The sponge is going to just absorb all the liquid. This is how students should be, and this is what we always encourage them to do, is absorb the knowledge, have this growth mindset, take initiatives, encourage yourself to learn things that might be interesting to you or might not be interesting to you, because you never know when you're going to need this knowledge. You never know the time that you're going to need to apply something and impress your boss. You never know. That's why being uncoachable is a red flag. And usually employers, when they choose the perfect fit within their team, they look at somebody with growth mindset who's coachable, who's ready to collaborate with their team members. It's not a one-person show. It's never is. It never is. It's a team's effort. And if you're not ready to have this kind of mindset, to collaborate, and not to compete, don't compete, learn. Sometimes in every team, you have a high achievers, people who work really hard, they know a lot, they do a lot. Don't compete with them, learn from them instead of like putting head to head. Have this energy that, yes, I want to develop myself, but how is by having more capacity to absorb. Having this kind of mindset is what is going to get you a job, is what is also going to get you far away in the field.
That is definitely a good advice on that. I think Tim might kind of relate to it. So I'm pretty sure teams at sea look different than teams at land, right? So whenever you are trying to generally upskill your teams, how does that look like? What's kind of the approach on having your team adapt or learn to new things collaboratively?
Yeah, so you're right. Life at sea is a little bit different. There's no Amazon Prime that can deliver a broken part the next day. You have to be very self-reliant on yourselves, and you have to work as a team. So to answer your question about how do we develop people, it really is kind of twofold. So one, making sure that everyone has exposure to everything that they might come across, so that when an issue comes up, they feel at least semi-confident enough to be able to deal with it. So, there is a technical kind of aspect of things. And that's just through time and through absorbing, what's around you. But the other side of things is trying to widen everyone's view and looking at the bigger picture. So if we are having some sort of issue, what is the actual impact to the company? Not just what service is not running on what server, but what is this? What is the impact of this issue? And then by the first step into getting into that point is learning how to remain calm and collected. A lot more than what you would learn in a textbook. In a textbook, you might read, this server, these services on a Microsoft server does this, but knowing, okay, let me just take a moment here. Let me look at what is the most actual important issue going on right now. Collecting logs might be important so that we can do a root cause analysis. However, on our ship, if the casino is down, it's making $100,000 an hour. Really getting that casino back up again is way more important than collecting those logs. So, kind of it's absorbing what's happening and trying to gain a bigger picture of what the business wants, what operations are looking for. So I think that the mindset when I'm hiring people is very similar to that, right? Are they people that have looked at and read textbooks and understand services, or are they people who really kind of understand what IT does? What is it that IT is providing to a business?
Definitely. I think when we talk about that difference between the life at sea and life on land in terms of your job, when you say things go down and people have to approach them with calmness and other skills that they should be needing, when people don't do that, and there's kind of that rift between your client and your team. How do you think you approach that? Like, if you have to define that approach, and how do you want your team members to approach that?
Yeah, well, you know, I think one characteristic I try to um, make up. How can I say it? The team needs to realize that we're all on the same boat, quite literally and figuratively. You know, we are all trying to accomplish the same goal at the end, right? So it doesn't matter what team you are, shoreside or shipboard. It doesn't matter what company you work for. We're all trying to accomplish one goal, right? So if something has happened and we have one guy who is not staying calm or having some sort of issue, you know, the rest of the team does need to feel comfortable with kind of helping him out and being like, hey, you know, let's work on this as a team. You know, what's going on? Let's troubleshoot this together. So trying to build a team mentality is of huge importance when you're on a ship, because there's only 4 or 5 or 6 people that are there, you know, running the entire ship. But from the perspective of the person who might be not staying calm, who might be quite stressed, really after the fact, having a conversation with them and allowing them to reflect and to be honest and to say, this is why I was freaking out, and not hold them, and not make them feel bad for that, is also the other kind of aspect of a characteristic that you want to bring up. So I think, you know, as a student, when you're learning and trying to develop your skills, you want to also work on working with your fellow students and saying, let's solve this problem that we have together. Let's understand this concept, or let's try to do this project together, because that is where you're going to learn those skills that in your career as a team you're going to be relying on. So working together so that in case you are the guy who's freaking out or somebody else is the person freaking out, you know how to work as a team.
Definitely. I think the good idea is to control how you freak out. Definitely. Uh, I so we kind of discussed the learning part of skill development. Now, in the beginning of the conversation, Alex gave out a real pressure on networking, getting to know people, and for somebody who's trying to start out networking, it's more of like a chore. So it's not like not bilateral that the communication is happening, or the person's trying to approach other person. It's more of like really transactional in approach, because there can be scenarios people are awkward to talk to other people, or they're just too shy to do that, right? So I think what kind of tangible things that we can do to have that natural aspect of networking to be brought in. So say if I'm a student, I'm trying to network with a professional for the very first time, how should I be approaching that? I think Alex would be a good person to take a stab at that.
Yeah, for sure. Have you ever lifted 100 kilograms? I haven't. Have anyone? No? Yeah? 100? Have you lifted right away from the first time you tried? Exactly. Why? Why not? Because your body needs to get accustomed to this weight, right? How do you do that? By gradually practicing and increasing the weight slowly, right? Networking is like that. Networking is not easy. It's hard. It's going out of your comfort zone for a lot of people, especially if you're not extroverted like me. If you're introverted, it's going to be energy draining. So what do? You have to build your self-confidence. You have to build your self-confidence. How do you do this? Is by attending our career webinars, career-related webinars. So we have career-related webinars focusing on, first of all, elevator pitch. Have you heard of the elevator pitch? What is an elevator pitch? It's a pitch about yourself, about who you are as a person, what are you currently doing, past experience or projects you worked on, future, probably one phrase about your future goal in about 30 to 60 seconds maximum. And that's how long it takes you from the lobby to the 10th floor, let's say. That's an elevator pitch. Practice your elevator pitch. That will boost your self-confidence. Second, you have to really be detail-oriented. When you're approaching someone, you have to find the similarities. If I want to approach someone, I look at the details. What are they wearing? Are they wearing a hat? If I'm wearing a hat, then we have similarities. As simple as this. If they're, let's say, working at KPU, then that's a similarity. If they're working in IT and I'm studying IT, that's a similarity. So look at the similarities. Look at things that are in common. And use those as your icebreakers. This is a conversation starter right away. If they're wearing a nice shoes, give them a compliment. That's an icebreaker right there. Once you have enough self-confidence and once you practice, it's not like right away. You cannot lift 100 kilograms right away from the first try. You're gonna have to build that momentum. Once you are there, then a lot of doors will open up in front of you because networking is so important, and I cannot emphasize enough on how important is networking. Your network is your net worth, really. The more people you know in the industry, the more opportunities that you will have. The easier that you will find jobs, the easier that you can learn about new things. So a lot of people, especially IT people, they ignore the networking part. They focus on the knowledge part. How can I code? How can I learn this? How can I learn that? But yes, it's great. That's excellent. It's super necessary. But what about the other skills that can get you a job? How can you, like, being in a team and having a team collaboration skills is not something that you can learn in the books. You're gonna have to work within a team in order for you to learn how it works. The same thing goes for organizational skills and problem solving. And that's why we have, as I mentioned, the career-related webinars. We have at the booth over there, we have brochures with a QR code. You can scan them, you can join the career-related webinars. If you have any more questions, Vanessa's there also. I'm here to support you, and that's why we're here. That's why we have the team, the Student Success Coach team, and that's why we have also the Career Development Center. We're here to support you.
I think Raheem looked at you and be like, hey, I am wearing a hat. But yeah.
Similarities.
I think we should ask Raheem, how would you react if somebody comes up to you in a networking session and be like, hey Raheem, nice hat.
I obviously like hats. So we would probably talk a little bit about my hat. Maybe that's okay.
That can win you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think as you mentioned, Alex, it's something that you do slowly and build up on top of it. I think that the communities that are prevalent out in the industry play a really big role in developing that part in students specifically. I think, Praveen, when you started out first as a cloud professional or as a fresher in the industry, you might have joined in some communities. How did that shape your overall experience? And if you want to suggest one or two, what would you suggest to be a part of?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. It goes to the my career drift actually. So I was working as an IT support engineer, and I remember the very first event I attended was in Vancouver. So I would go on meetup.com, eventbrite.com, and just look up IT event, technology events. If you want to go into cloud, just type cloud and you'll find something. It was about security in general, like cybersecurity and just about security, like application testing and stuff like that. So I wasn't really aware of that stuff at the time when I was in IT support role. And I went to that first event, and I was kind of got the impression that security is like the next thing I want to do. Turned out it's not. I got introduced to cloud through that security event, and that cloud struck with me for like a couple months, and I was like thinking about what this thing is. I had never heard about cloud before that event. So I went home, I think after 2 months, to my surprise as well. I sat for two of the Microsoft Azure certification and passed them. I was like, this is interesting. I want to do more of it. And that was kind of my initiative, or my kind of drive to go into cloud, was through these events. And over the time, I have been part of a lot of events. There's the OWASP community, there's Vancouver meetup community, there's Microsoft 365 meetup community. I don't know about AWS, there may be some of them. AWS is not something I kind of focus heavily on. But you'll find something on meetup.com, on Eventbrite. You just have to look it up. We are all here sitting here for same reason. This is also an event where you talk to people, where you meet some other people. And uh, Alex also mentioned about the networking piece, right? Which is another thing that, to my over a couple of years of attending these events, the faces that you see on these events every month, they start becoming familiar, and you kind of get to talk to people naturally. You don't have to force yourself with the icebreaker. You just kind of see somebody like 3 times, and fourth time they're like, "Hey, I saw you before as well." That becomes your icebreaker then, because you've seen the faces, they look familiar. And I have had times when people have, when I was working in an IT job as well, when people would say, "Hey, I have this opening in my company that I work with. Why don't you send me your resume and I'll help you get the job?" It turned out I didn't like the role or whatever the reason was, but the power of talking to people in these events is like, you never know whom you may end up talking to, right? That person may be hiring, that person may give you a referral, that may introduce you to somebody else who may be hiring. So I think keep yourself open, try to attend as many events, and most of them are conveniently after 5 o'clock. So you can obviously, after your work, after your classes, you can go to these events. And of course, most of them are in Vancouver area. Since we are in Surrey, you may find some, but we have the transit, we have the way to go. I think it's really important for us to, before you go there and understand it for yourself. It's really hard for somebody to just tell you, "Hey, go there and you'll get the job." If you actually start going and you feel like, okay, I have made a right career decision by actually talking to people, knowing some of these folks, connect with them on LinkedIn before you go home from the event. Like, just add like 5 or 10 people at least, so they start becoming warm in your connection. And then maybe later on, a couple of days later, you send them a message, "Hey, we met at this event. I hope everything is good." Um, Keep that casual relationship, and then when the time comes, they may see you posting. You may just reach out to them saying, "Hey, I was thinking of changing my career. Can you give me some advice?" Never go to somebody just saying, "Hey, can you refer me to this position in your company that you have open?" Right? People message me a lot of time, even though we are not hiring. They say, "Hey, can you refer me to this company that you're part of?" Connection, like, it's not. I don't even know you personally, right? So either you meet them in person through these events, or you kind of talk to them over time on LinkedIn or emails, whatever your mode of communication is, that they get to know you personally, how you talk, how you meet. Just set up a virtual coffee chat with them like every 6 months. I don't know if that's something of for too long, like maybe every month. But the way is to like for them to know you so that they can actually personally refer you to somebody in their company, or they can introduce you to somebody else who may be hiring.
Definitely. I think it really adds on to that what Alex said as that gradual uh, n- becoming, like to have that step by step approach part of thing. True, yeah, the building momentum. I think that's the good word to say it. I want to pass it on to Tim and Angelica, and the question stays the same. I'm pretty sure it's really different from what Praveen said. His experience was with technology communities. How do you see yourself being a part of technology communities when you started out? Tim, you wanna stab it out first?
Yeah, sure. Um, well, when I first started, I mean, I did the co-op program here, so I did connect with those employers. When I left to go work for Royal Caribbean, I maintained those relationships, and every time I came back, I would meet up with my old manager at WorkSafe BC, and every single time she would say, "When are you coming back? When are you coming back?" It was nice to feel that, but to keep that connection, and same thing with my employers at YVR. When I left, it was a bit more difficult to have that sense of community because I was kind of all over the world. But one thing that I did want to mention was, first of all, the elevator pitch part that Alex was mentioning. That is something that you really do need to get down for yourselves. I had an opportunity at one point. I was talking to my VP, and he actually said directly to me, "Give me your elevator pitch." And I was not prepared. And at that point, afterwards, I was like, if I would have had the right thing to say, I probably could be a director at this point. It is one of those things that they are really, really important and good to know. So I just wanted to reiterate that part. But building that community and that connection, LinkedIn is fantastic because it is a great way to meet a lot of people, see how they're connected. Please do not start reaching out and saying, "Give me a job." I don't know how, I probably have like 1,500 messages on my LinkedIn from people saying, "Hey, I want to work for your company." I'm like, I have no idea who you are. You live in Goa or something. I don't know. I've never met you. But so LinkedIn, there are a lot of social media platforms, obviously, that the professional ones that you can join. But then the other one would be find something that you're passionate about. It doesn't necessarily have to be directly in your field. So if you love coding and you love coding in Python, you don't have to necessarily be part of a Python coding group. You can be part of just a general coding group, or maybe just algorithms or something. I don't know, something that you're passionate about. Join that group and kind of make connections that way, because that way you already have something in common. You don't have to find the hat that you have in common because you already have something to begin with. So that there are kind of multiple ways that you can build your own community. You don't necessarily have to join one that already exists, because sometimes it can feel a bit intimidating trying to join a group that is already going. Versus kind of making your own, if you can find something that you're passionate about.
Definitely. Angelica, you wanna add on something to that?
Yeah, so personally, I don't really relate to the whole tech community thing, mainly because, one, I'm introverted as hell, don't like reaching out to people, but it's something that you really have to force yourself to do. When I was working at that VR company, my team lead, who, there's someone who's supervising you, you have a very surface level relationship. Well, when I left, we kept in contact and we just kept chatting occasionally, like every week or two. We found common interests, we started playing video games together, and then when I was working at UBC, he actually ended up reaching out to me to be like, "Hey, I'm hiring a QA engineer at PwC. I know that you went to school for So-and-so, I'd really like you to come interview for my team. And that's how I got my current job. So for me, my type of networking is being very intentional about who I'm keeping in contact with, who I'm reaching out to. I've done a lot of networking in the past year because as a QA, I'm actually interested in doing other things like product management, for instance. And so look at the people around you as well, not just like on LinkedIn, but if you know them personally or they work at the company. I've done a lot of reaching out to product managers at PwC just to say, hey, I'm really interested in this field. Do you have maybe like 15, 30 minutes for a quick virtual coffee chat, just to get to know each other, talk about our interests, etc. And that's been really successful for me. I'm actually doing I found a mentor that way at PwC who's mentoring me in product management. I have been keeping in contact with, I think, 5 different product managers who work across PwC. So I guess my advice with networking is be intentional about who you're reaching out to. I find that we get told to network a lot, so you're kind of reaching out to whoever to see what fits, but some people don't really like that just surface level connection. They want more. And for me, making those deeper connections have really worked out for me.
Definitely. I think that was another thing I wanted to ask out too, because there was a lot of reiteration of networking, and then there was another thing that it's really awkward and transactional. So I think that kind of explains how to approach that awkwardness or intention behind what you're trying to do, right? I think it's time we should really bring it home. uh, Maybe this is gonna be a tough question for everybody, maybe not. But I really wanna, because we discussed a lot about how to develop skills, how do you wanna utilize what you already have. But I I think it's everything that we mentioned is kind of long term in terms of career perspectives. Like you have to put an effort today, and it's a really long marathon that you wanna be a part of, right? But if you have to be giving out one actionable piece of advice or one habit that somebody can develop if they leave this room today, what would that actionable piece of advice would be? Richard, you wanna start off? Maybe I'm gonna go left to right, right to left.
Got an answer. I'm trying to bake through here. Let's see.
I can start.
Sure.
Okay. What I advise everyone is to leverage LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very powerful networking tool. Leveraging LinkedIn in 3 different aspects, not only in one. First of all, LinkedIn has a learning platform which called LinkedIn Learning. A lot of very valuable courses are offered there, and for you being at Surrey, you have an access to LinkedIn Learning for free. Usually some courses you have to pay for them, but you can go to Surrey Library and you can let them know that I'd like to have a free LinkedIn Learning, and then you can have it for free just because you're at Surrey. So get the LinkedIn Learning membership, free membership, and try to set a goal for you. Like, I want to learn 5 different courses a month. And you're going to get a certificate for each course that you complete. That's one. So using LinkedIn Learning that's one. Using LinkedIn to document your progress. A lot of you are currently working on different projects. Document what you're working on. Put all these details, or like not all the details, but put the project details in a post and post it on LinkedIn. And get involved with LinkedIn groups, IT groups, for example, and post those things over there. You have no idea who might read this post and get really interested in it and reach out to you. That's a second thing. The third thing is use LinkedIn for job searching and update your LinkedIn profile, because a lot of us usually get very, very busy, and the last time you've updated your LinkedIn profile was more than 6 months ago. Are you the same person 6 months ago? No, I'm sure you've learned a lot since then. Everything should be updated. I was working with a client recently who was laid off, unfortunately, working in the IT industry. And just by updating his LinkedIn profile, he was, and then he wanted to start his own business in IT, which he did. And he updated his LinkedIn profile, and he was able, just by doing that, he was able to secure his first client, just by doing that. Being very active on LinkedIn is the new way of networking. So leverage LinkedIn. When you apply for any kind of job, what's the very first thing that people do or employers do? They look you up on LinkedIn. They want to check who you are. They want to check what kind of post do you have. What are you interested in? What did you like? What did you comment sometimes? What are you involved in? If you have a professional looking profile, professional looking, like documenting the projects that you're interested in, this shows who you are as a person, your interest, and how professional you are. So leverage that.
Definitely. Richard, you want to take the seat again?
Okay, I think I've got something here. As Alex had said, try to join some sort of group, something that might not even be IT related, because IT is pretty much in every single sector there is. In 2018, I had ended up joining the Port Coquitlam Photography Club. So we would get together once a month and just explain what the picture was about. And of course, you do a little bit of like talk about yourself, like an elevator pitch. And I had to mention that, trying to use things on a very dated family computer and trying to convince my parents that we needed something a little bit beefier, because photos take up a lot of space, especially videos. Once I'd kind of gotten to know everybody that was there, and we're talking people who were teenagers, seniors, well, a lot of them will have issues when it comes to uploading stuff to their computer. And next thing you know, I was the one that was being dispatched. I've gone to people's houses. I've helped them with freeing up computer space, making sure that they're a lot more secure in how they do things. And next thing you know, I kind of became the go-to tech guy for them. So in a way, I was essentially able to network myself with those skills. So whether it be photography, cooking, going to concerts, right? Finding something where you have that middle ground with people, and then being able to utilize what you do, whether you're at school, whether you've been in the IT community for 8 years or so. You'd be surprised at what you can really sell yourself on.
Definitely. Okay, Angelica.
My actionable, I guess, piece of advice is going to tie back into my coffee chats. At least, if you're someone like me, you don't really like reaching out to people, you're introverted as heck, go out of your way to reach out to someone in your network, your LinkedIn network, someone you know personally, just to have a coffee chat and get to know them. Make sure it's about something that interests you, or something that you're interested in pursuing or you want to just learn more about. But set up those like maybe once a month coffee chats, once a week if you're being really ambitious, but go out of your way to be super intentional about these chats that you're going to have, and have goals in mind when you're having these chats as well. So that would be my piece of advice. Really simple.
Raheem?
I think a lot of people have alluded to it, but no one's actually said it. So, volunteer. Volunteer. If you want to go to a conference, it's too expensive. Hey, sign up as a volunteer and go volunteer for it. Right? Like you will find as you volunteer that your social skills will improve. Right? You're going to be lifting weights with Alex in no time. All right. And you're also gonna find that it's a much more organic way to build relationships, I find. So, if somebody, you may talk to some random on the street that's like, oh, I have this annoying computer problem. Like, your IT students, go help them. Like, be like, hey, let me try and help you with that, right? It's a good way to give back to the community, but it's also a really good way to network as well. And so, and it'll help you kind of put yourself out there in a very kind of non-threatening but also organic way if you're having a bit of trouble, being social with people. I don't. I'm an extrovert, but my advice is, yeah, volunteer. It's good.
I was hoping you're gonna advise how to start to like hats. Maybe a good icebreaker. Tim?
Yes, volunteering is great. I mean, like for example, this year we're volunteering right now, and I met Geeta, and we connected right away. That we both live in South Delta, and now we know we're LinkedIn buddies already. Just 10 minutes ago. All right. One thing that I would say is keep track of the things that you're doing. Update them into your LinkedIn or into your CV, into your elevator pitch. But really remember the things that you're doing, because as a student, you're going to be taking a lot of courses, doing a lot of things, and they start to get lost. For example, you're all here today, right? Remember that during an interview, they might say, what have you done to show me that you're really interested in your career? You can say, well, I actually went to a career development, IT, actually I'm not sure what this is, IT skill development in an AI era panel talk, right? Because I was interested in that. And those things are really hard, really easy to forget, that you go to these things. And that's a skill that will be great to get you the job, but also once you do get a job and you want a career development, when your manager says, hey, what have you done? You can say, well, I did these 50 things, remind the manager, and they go, oh, great, we're going to give you a promotion or a raise or something. So it's a skill that'll help you now, but it'll also help you in the future as well.
Definitely. Praveen?
Thank you. I'll add a little points to what Tim mentioned is tracking what you do. I personally use Notion. I'm sure people may have heard of the name Notion. It's a note-taking application. You can write about stuff that you do and take notes. How I use it is as a personal kind of a dashboard, right? Every year I get like a different columns for like every month. I write down what I've done in that specific month. And there was a time earlier in my career where I used to write like all the events I've been to in my resume. So when somebody looks at the resume and they say, okay, this person is actually putting the effort to know more about this stuff that's out there, not just sitting in the job, 9 to 5 stuff, going home and just being in their own mind, right? So be out there. But my advice for the change is actually the change is going to start with you. So I would say just spend at least 1 hour every day to learn something new. If that's your passion, maybe spend that time to find what you want to do, and eventually you'll start spending that time towards learning that specific skill. LinkedIn Learn, there's some YouTube platform has a lot of free stuff as well. Spend some initial time to understand what your goals are, what your interest is, and then do that consistently for like a couple of months, like spend 1 hour every day, and that will add up eventually in terms of how much time you're putting to develop those skills. And it's not a one-day thing. Things will take time. For me, it took me 6 months to jump from IT to cloud role. So it may be different for you guys, depending on how often you put time and invest time in yourself.
Definitely. Now we have like 6 action items that everybody can do when they go home from here. I think we're gonna bring this discussion to an end because we have 2 wonderful people waiting up for their turn because they want to share their resources with the attendees. Uh, I really want to thank everyone who's present here for your time and like